So I wasn't going to do a video because it's not quiet here. And I couldn't be 100% focused and perfect and all this shit. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to do it anyway. So I'm setting everything up to do this video, and I can hear, and it's not them. It's just I can hear there's people that rent the basement, and it's loud. I rent the top, and it's loud, and I can hear. It's like I'm never alone. It's like I have people living with me. Basically, there's no noise barrier. I don't know what they can hear, but I can hear pretty much everything. And I've known for a while that I wanted to move. I love this house. Like, if I had this house to myself, totally different story. I love the neighborhood, the area. The house itself is beautiful. The bathroom is a bit small. For anyone that's been to my house, it's like there's no countertop. But anyway, and as soon as I had the thought, I was like, how would I make that happen? Immediately, my brain was like, yeah, but how? Like, how are you possibly going to do that? And there's many variables as to why that would be challenging. And then I sat with it and I was like, I do really want to move. And so I texted my stepmom and I was like, I know you're busy, but I just want to get this out there. Like, I want to move within the year, period. And so the reason I'm opening with this is because I don't totally know how to say this. Like, too often we allow fear to run our decisions. And like, I've been annoyed as fuck living here, to be totally honest. And again, it's nothing to do with the actual person living downstairs. They're fine. I've been annoyed as fuck because I hear everything. And I just like I chose to live alone so I could feel like I live alone, not that I feel like I live with people. And the house is beautiful, and I'm all about gratitude and being happy, and it served me for the time that it served me. Like, I've lived here for 2 years. So it served me for the time that it served me, but it no longer serves me. And I want something better. And I've been fighting myself on wanting something better because I feel like I should just be grateful for what I have and I shouldn't strive for something better. Like, this is perfectly fine. This is perfectly acceptable. You know, other people would be like overjoyed to have a house like this. You should just be grateful. And these are the stories, these are the things that I've been telling myself. And there's a balance, I think. You know, there's a balance between like being grateful for what you have and not living in misery every day. And then also realizing that you want more and being okay with that. And I've been telling myself that I'm okay with living here because I'm not willing to do the things necessary to get myself to a place of living somewhere else, basically. And whether that's, you know, paying off all my debt, fixing my credit so I can buy a house, or paying off all my debt, fixing my credit so I can rent again, like whatever the case is, I don't want to do the hard things or the uncomfortable things, potentially uncomfortable things, to put myself in a position where I'm moving. And my landlords are fantastic people. I really like them. Like, half the time over the summer, the husband, Carter, he comes and he'll just like mow the lawn because I'm kind of bad at staying on top of that, but he'll just come and mow the lawn. And I'm like, and some people would take that as like, who are you to come and mow the lawn? This is, you know, I'm living here. Nah, I don't give a shit. You want to mow the lawn? Mow the lawn. Doesn't bother me. Thank you. So, you know, I've had really great landlords and I've been focusing on the positive. And I feel like we do that a lot in our lives, right? We default to what is easy, what is comfortable. And it's like, yeah, I would like to do that thing, but like, this is just easier. This is just easier. It's just easier to say, and we kind of lie to ourselves in a way, right? It's easier to say, I like living here. I love living here. This house is great. This neighborhood is great. Everything's great. It's easy to say that because then I stay. And then I'm like lying to myself about how happy I actually am here until I start to hear things downstairs and then I get really agitated. Like when I was about to start this video and I was going to do a video on something totally different. But I got agitated. I mean, I'm kind of PMSing right now too, but and I'm like, fuck, I just don't want to hear other people's living their lives out. And who knows what he hears? He doesn't complain like to me or anything. He's super chill, but like who fucking knows what he hears? And I'm just like, I don't want this. And and I feel it's really important, and my stepmom's been telling me this forever, and I go back and forth with it because of the type of person that I am. I'm just very stubborn. Once I want something, I'll get it. And I just get so fed up that I end up doing the thing. But I feel like there's a better way. There's a better way to do that, right? It's a belief. It's a belief of, am I deserving of this thing? And I feel like, and I'm speaking to like maybe the 40 something year olds, because I was raised by baby boomers, so we were raised generationally by the same people. So even though I'm in my 30s, I was still raised by baby boomers. So I still have that mentality of like, just be thankful for what you have. Like, shut the fuck up and just be thankful. Like, you know, our parents were in a war. Like, we were starving. We ate, I remember my grandfather said that he ate like mustard and onion sandwiches, which he liked. Weirdo. Um, but like, they didn't have much. So, you know, we were raised in that generation to just be grateful, just be thankful for what you have, and not in the sense that I have gratitude for everything I have and I'm working towards more. It's just like, shut the fuck up and be grateful. And, you know, when we do that in our lives, I feel like it just, I see it like, you know, you're shaking a can of pop or a bottle of pop or something fizzy. And it's just like you shake it, you shake it, you shake it, you shake it, you shake it. And then all of a sudden, like someone opens it and it explodes everywhere. And that's really telling with, you know, like a situation like this where I get annoyed when I start to hear things downstairs. Why am I getting so agitated? Well, because I really don't want to live here. I just keep lying to myself and saying that I do and just accepting things for the way they are. So if there's a better way, like for us to look at our behavior and say, okay, this is a belief. This is a belief. It goes deeper than just, let's just be thankful for what we have. Because yes, we should be thankful for what we have, but we should also be allowed to go after the things that we want and feel that we're deserving of such. Because if we want something, go get it. But we default, and I do it all the time, like we default to, well, and I believe that it's the belief that we aren't necessarily deserving of the thing. And sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes I feel guilty for leveling up my life, so to speak, for going after more. I feel guilty I feel like I've left some people behind. I feel like people will think that I think I'm better than them when I don't think that, which ties into my own wound of abandonment, right? And not wanting to hurt other people because I don't want them to reject me, because I don't want to feel abandoned. And so like it's so incredibly multi-layered. It's absolutely everything is interconnected. When we think a behavior over here is just a singular behavior, it's not. Like, this behavior is tied to this emotion, which is tied to this belief, which was tied to this event, which is tied to this belief with this person and this relationship, and then it all comes back to the core. And I mean, it's I'm just like processing it as I'm talking it out, right? Like yeah, I mean, it's interesting to say the least. Where in our lives are we not truly showing up? And like you really want to go to, I'm trying to think of an example, but a good example. But my brain's fried today. Also, Kara, I'm wearing makeup. You're welcome. She said I need to do better on my videos and be more presentable. And like, here's the thing. She's very aesthetics and she's very like presentation, and she's always very put together, and I so admire that. And I believe that it's my deep inner defiance that goes so the opposite way. That I'll just like wake up in the morning, have a good thought, and be like, yeah. And I think every once in a while that's okay. I think it's important to just show yourself as you are. But I go so far in the opposite direction out of pure innate defiance, which again, that's a deep thing that I'm working on. But it's like, you want the name brand thing, let's say, whatever the case is. You want the name brand thing. But the name brand thing isn't on sale. So you'll buy the cheaper knockoff option. Even though you really want the name brand thing, you're still kind of getting the thing because it's like a knockoff, but it's not the actual thing that you wanted. Does that make sense? So like, you really wanted the Nike shoes. Of course I go to sports stuff. Activewear. I live in activewear. Activewear is my life. You really want the Nike shoes, but the Nike shoes are like $150. You can say you don't have the money, and maybe you don't have the money at that present moment. But if you really wanted the shoes, you'd find a way to get the money to buy the shoes. Because if you look at your past actions in your life, there's been times where you haven't had the money for something, and you've gotten the money for something, and you've bought the thing that you wanted. So, and this is just one example. So you want the $150 shoes, you want the Nikes, but you settle for the knockoff because at least you have shoes at that point. And if this is resonating with you, great, because this is kind of how I've lived my life, really. And I'm just seeing now how sad that is, kind of. And sad in the sense that it's just been such a waste of time. It's been such a waste of time for me to say, I really want this, but I'm going to dance around it and I'm going to do all these other things instead. You know, out of fear, out of beliefs, out of excuses. Because you can make excuses all day, but really, if you like read a few biographies of people who had like insurmountable things, stacked against them, and they still managed to live these incredible lives. So, like, who the fuck are we to make excuses? We have absolutely everything available to us, and maybe that's part of the problem. But we have absolutely everything available to us, and then we make excuses for ourselves. And really, truly, in my inside, I'm not a nice person. If I'm being really honest, I'm not a nice person. I'm a kind person. I'm a caring person. I'm a loving person. But I'm not a nice person. I just defaulted to being a nice person. Behavior, like my behavior is nice. But I defaulted to being a nice person out of need to not be abandoned. And I saw nice people as people that people liked. So I just became a nice person. And truthfully, at the end of the day, if I said that all the things that were on my mind and I was really honest, people wouldn't like me. And that's something that I'm coming to now, that I just need to step into myself and just be who I am. And if you don't like it, too fucking bad. My point. We sugarcoat things too much. We sugarcoat things too much. We're too easy on ourselves. Like, at the end of the day, the push is what's going to get you there. And you have to be the one to hold yourself accountable. But it's like, I would rather someone throw me to the wolves so I could figure out how to survive than take me through, a 12-week wilderness course and observing the wolves and like being like, okay, this is how you get to know the wolf. Like, getting the experience, jumping in with both feet, just fucking figuring it out. And all of that comes with committing to the outcome of the thing. which goes back to my very original point in this video. Like, if I commit to the outcome of, by, what's the date? October. So within 1 year, October 10th, let's say, it's a Saturday, whatever, October 1st, or even November 1st, whatever. A year from now, I set a date and I say, by this date, I'm going to find a house. I'm going to rent a house. This is what the house is going to look like. You know, you want to be specific when you're trying to manifest, but at the same time, if I want 3-bedroom and it happens to be 2, but it has everything else that I could possibly want and need in the house, I mean, I'm going to take that house, right? But setting yourself up to commit to the outcome, period. So this is where I'm sitting now. This is where I want to be. I'm committing to be here. And then however I need to get there, I get there. But what we do, and what I do too, we go, I would really like to do this thing. I would really like to do this thing. Let's see how hard it's going to be to get there. And I'm not fully committed. I would like to do it, but I'm not fully committed, which is great because once it starts to get too hard, I can quit. And isn't that what we do? It gets hard and we quit. We give up. And then people, we wonder why we're so sad. We wonder why we're so depressed. We wonder why we're so angry. We wonder why there's a massive addiction problem. Before COVID, not just, we wonder why there's such a high suicide rate. Like, people just give up. And then they feel like there's no going back, and they've fucked it up so much that there's no point in going forward. So I'm going to escape, I'm going to run away from, I'm going to run towards. But if we commit to the outcome of the thing and say, no matter what, I'm just going to fucking do this thing. Like, there's got to have been a time in your life when you were just like, fuck this. I'm doing this no matter what. Maybe it was like leaving your spouse after 20 years of marriage and you're like, fuck this. I can't take this shit anymore. I'm out of here. I don't care if I have to live in my parents' basement for 2 years. While I get back on my feet, I'm fucking out of here. I don't care if I have to be poor for a while. I don't care if I have to be hungry for a while. Like, growing up and when I was in high school, like, my grandmother was going through menopause, and it was a tumultuous fucking environment for me. The hot and cold love, I was going through puberty. Like, I got my tongue pierced and I got punched in the head. I couldn't live like that. But my house was comfortable otherwise, right? Like, I had food, I had a roof, I had a nice bed, I had nice things. But I got to a point where I was just like, fuck this. And yeah, I mean, there was other ways to deal with that on both ends, but I just put all my clothes in a garbage bag and was like, peace. And I slept on couches, and I slept on floors and couches, and I was just like, fuck this. Until there was a promise of things getting better, and it went up and down, blah, blah, blah. I digress. Maybe it's a job. Maybe you're just so fucking sick of it, and it's just like, you know what, I'll figure it out, because I've had it up to here. I've fucking had it up to here. My boss thinks he fucking knows better. He keeps telling me, shoving this bullshit up my sunshine up my ass. I can do this job better, but they won't promote me. Fuck this, I'm out. Like, you just begin to realize your worth. You begin to realize that you're wasting your fucking time. And good enough is like, meh. Like, when you go to a restaurant, that's the thing, right? Like, and I don't typically complain about food just because I've been in the service industry and I try not to, I'm like, if it's edible, I'll eat it. It's not a big deal. I love food, period. I think there's only been like 2 times I've sent food back. But again, I've worked in the service industry. I was a bartender and a server. Like, I know what that's like. So I try to be like super neat. I clean up, before I leave and all that shit. Anyway, most people are not afraid to send their food back because they know what they want. And they ordered it and they didn't get what they want, so they sent the food back to get what they wanted. And yet we can do those things in these micro things, like these tiny little ways. We can do those things. But then when it comes to like the really important things, we don't do that. And it's just this lack of commitment to ourselves. Really. It's lack of commitment to ourselves. And I'm seeing why I'm like that. It's all fear. It's all fear. And at the end of the day, like, my core wound is abandonment. Fear of abandonment. And it starts here, right? It's here. And I'm afraid of abandonment, so, I won't always be myself. I'll be quiet when I want to speak up. I'll be nice to people even though it's not how I would typically act. I'll befriend people that I wouldn't normally be friends with. I'll try to keep those friendships because I don't want anyone to hate me, because they'll reject me and they'll abandon me. I'll do what I'm told. I'll put my emotions second. I won't really go after the things that I want in fear that I don't get them, which in a way is kind of like a rejection or abandonment from the thing. I'll let people step over my boundaries. And then all of those unmet needs, I'll get through drugs, I'll get through eating, smoking, sex. Binge watching TV. Maybe you shut off, watch Netflix. I do that sometimes too. I'm going to set a 21-day challenge for myself. And I'm not going to watch any TV unless it's like some kind of learning thing. No TV, no television. I'll listen to podcasts and watch videos. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a separate post about that, now that I think about it. But do you see what I'm saying? And like, I don't know about you, but like, that shit fucking scares me. That scares me. Like, I look at my life and I'd say 90% of my choices were all a result of my fear of abandonment. And so deeply that I didn't notice. Like, half the time I didn't notice. Like, when I, sleeping with certain guys, like, whatever, certain behaviors I knew. I'm like, oh, I know. I'm aware enough to know what this is. But like the little things. And I don't know, when is it really enough? When is it really time to say, fuck it? I want more for myself. I want better for myself. Like, I hear people dying of like these strange diseases they didn't know they had. Like, all of a sudden they have cancer. All of a sudden they have this. All of a sudden they have that. Or whatever. And I'm just like, fuck. And I have a moment where I'm like, fuck. And I might do something. But we're constantly trying to make ourselves feel better instead of actually healing. I'm going to say that again. We're constantly trying to make ourselves feel better instead of healing. And now the healing will make us feel better. But just feeling better, it's a temporary distraction. It's not a permanent solution. And this is why, like, I isolate myself a lot. I'm a pretty social person, but I isolate myself a lot. And it's because I know that I have to force myself to feel certain things. Because even if we're sitting at home and we're watching TV, like, we're getting some pleasure from that. We're getting some need met from that. Like, you've got people, you're laughing, you're whatever the case is, whatever you're watching, you're being entertained in some way. Some emotional need is being met. You're not sitting with your feelings. You're making yourself feel better. If you're upset and you call a friend, like, that's exactly, we do that, right? And it's not to say that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's bad. But we do it so often. We're just like, we cut ourselves and we immediately put the Band-Aid on. We cut ourselves and we immediately put the Band-Aid on. But like, at some point we have to open the wound and let it breathe and let it heal. But we don't do that. We're sad, we call a friend. We go get ice cream. We go out to dinner. We watch a movie. We distract ourselves. And I'm all about changing your state. I'm all about, like, you don't have to sit in your bad mood. It's not like that. But when you have a deep pain, and we all have deep pain we're not addressing, when you have a deep pain and it results, it manifests in a behavior, you see the result is some kind of behavior, and you see that and something happens and you're just like, fuck. Like, you need to sit in that. Like, you need to sit in that. Like, I didn't feel the pain of my abortion when I was 14 until really recently. And I feel it in pockets because it's really, really heavy for me. But, like, I pacified myself with that pain for years. And any time that would come up a little bit, I would pacify myself again. Maybe I'd have a drink. Maybe that's why I quit drinking. Like, I quit drinking this year, 2020, because last year was a fucking shit show. Because I was running a business I didn't want to be in. I was stressed the fuck out. All these emotions kept coming up, and I didn't want to deal with them. Fuck it. I don't want to deal with that shit. And so, like, I was drinking during the week. I wasn't getting hammered, but I was getting just buzzed enough where I could shut off. I didn't have to think about anything. And the fact that I wasn't going after the things that were really important to me. Because if I really sat with it and I removed all of my distractions, I would see how unhappy I really was. But we distract ourselves. And we're all living in this blanketed society where we placate each other and it's okay, they're there. And I'm not saying we shouldn't try to make each other feel better and connect. No, that's not what I'm fucking saying. But I'll tell you, it's nice to be like, they're there. But the people in my life that come at me and be like, yeah, you fucked up, Amanda. What the fuck are you doing? Stop lying to yourself. Stop telling yourself, like, fuck. The people that call me the fuck out are the people that I know care about me and want me to live my best fucking life. And I know that they're calling themselves out. The people that aren't calling you out aren't calling themselves out. And my constant fear, my whole life of rejection and abandonment has stopped me from being that person for others. Afraid to call other people out because I didn't want them to reject me or be mad at me. And at this point, I don't give a fuck. Because if you really objectively look at your life, if you just sit there and you go, okay, if I was observing this person that not as myself, what would I really see? Like, what would you really see? And be honest. Like, if I objectively looked at myself, I would be like, okay, I see a person that's gotten really fucking lucky in life. I also see a person who's really strong, but still relies on her excuses. I see a person that's ambitious and courageous, but still very fearful. I see a person that wants to heal, but is sometimes afraid to do the work. I see someone who's inconsistent. I see someone who really wants better for herself and the world, but needs to show the fuck up a hell of a lot more. Like, when we take that opportunity to really sit and, like, not with your phone, not with, like, I spent this week every morning before I wrote my blog posts, I just stared at the ceiling. No music, no phone, no nothing. I just stared at the ceiling and I felt so much emotion come out, so much emotion come through. And if you read my blog post this week, I mean, you'll see. That's what came up. But it's removing all distractions. And then once you can remove all distractions, you sit with yourself totally raw. Totally raw. And this is a process that, like, I've done this before with other things. And it's an ongoing process. Like, you got to do it every once in a while. It's like a tune-up, right? You can't just do it once and you're fine. I don't know, I just feel like I've always had one foot in the dark and one foot in the light. And I like the light, but I also like the dark. I like the dark. I feel like there's so much power there. There's so much power in our pain. And so many of us are avoiding it. So many of us are avoiding the very thing that fuels us. And it sucks. Like, you really think that I wanted to sit there and think about the daughter that I could have had, that I aborted, who would be 17 this year? You think I really wanted to think about that? As a woman, as a grown woman, who would have made a completely different choice today, who I look back on that 14-year-old girl and I hug her and I love her and I say, it's okay, I forgive you. But I didn't want to think about that. I didn't want to have to relive that horror fucking story. But I know that I have to. I know that I have to because I need to get right deep down into it. That's the only way for me to heal. You got to really get in there and just scrape everything out. Because if you leave anything, there's still shit there. There's still shit there. You think you've cleaned it out, but then one little thing is there. And it's gonna live and it's gonna multiply. It's like weeds, they're gonna grow. So, like, yeah, it's scary. And yeah, it's hard. And it's not something you can do with someone sitting next to you with their arm around you, comforting you. It's not. You have to do it alone. I get that now. But once you do it, like, look at me. I'm no different than you. I'm no better than you. I'm no more special than you. I'm no more stronger than you. I bet any of you, anybody who's watching this, any of you, every one of you probably has some insane story that I would hear and be like, that's fucked up. I'm glad I didn't go through that. That'd be fucking hard. Like, my stories aren't any more special or something. Like, there's not something super special about me. I'm normal like everybody else. I've had certain experiences in my life that have shaped me in more ways than one. I've just decided that I want to be resilient. I've decided that I don't want to let anything define me. I've decided that when someone calls me out on my bullshit and brings something to my attention, that I'm gonna fucking deal with it instead of avoid it. I've decided that I want better for my life. I've decided that I'm here. If I have a fucking purpose and I'm still not truly fulfilling it yet. I'm on my way, but I'm not there yet. But I've decided that I'm gonna do whatever it fucking takes. And whatever that takes doesn't mean going out and fucking working hard and doing all this shit on the outside. It's here. It's here. And we don't live here enough, which is why we default to making the mediocre decisions that give us mediocre results. We don't commit to an outcome, and we get half of the things that we wanted in life. Did you guys see that? I don't know how many of you believe in like angels or whatever, but like I saw it go past the screen, something like light. My sister says my house is haunted. I think I'm haunted, not haunted, but I do sense the energies around me. There was one last night, I swear to fuck. As I was going to bed, And I had Netflix playing on my phone because I do that shit too. And it all of a sudden shut off, and I just felt like someone was standing right in front of me. And I was like, okay. Okay, hey there. And I turned my Netflix back on. I'm like, how the fuck did it just shut off like that? I don't feel like talking right now. I'm tired. Can you please go away? And then I didn't feel it anymore. When we dig deep, we scrape out all the bullshit. We bring it up to the surface and we're like, hey, here it is. Here it fucking is. And then we can start to heal it. And we start to see, we recognize our trauma blueprint, how we are based on what we've been through. And in some ways, those behaviors serve us. If I look back, like, for example, my fear of abandonment caused me to be somewhat of a people pleaser and very nice and very observant of people's behaviors. So I could see when and where to act, how I needed to act, so I wouldn't be rejected. So I became very good at watching people and their behaviors and interjecting when I needed to interject and saying the right thing and doing the right thing. And while the reasoning behind that was something that was unhealthy that I needed to work on, it still became a behavior and a skill set for me later in life. And now that I can truly recognize why that behavior was the way it was and separate the trauma from it, I can put that in my tool belt and say, okay, I have this innate ability to read people, and I have this innate ability to be this not like a referee, but like I'm very articulate and I know how to speak to certain people a certain way because I've been watching them, because I've had this fear of rejection and abandonment. But now I'm an excellent communicator because of it. So I've separated the trauma from the behavior, and I'm objectively looking at it and I'm going, okay, there's something positive that I got out of that. And I'm not going to make those decisions anymore based on the fear of abandonment. But I know that I have that skill set, if that makes sense. So not only is it, there's a lot of negative traits from our trauma, but there's positive ones as well, is what I'm trying to say. So when we sit with ourselves without distraction, we're going on 40 minutes here. When we sit with ourselves without distraction, without any distraction, and you could even do it for I would say an hour a day. I really would say an hour a day, not 10 minutes. What the fuck are you going to do in 10 minutes? Because you need time to open it up, let it out, and then taper it down. Because if you open the floodgates altogether, it can be a little, depending on how much trauma you have that you haven't addressed. So, give yourself maybe an hour a day. And if you say you don't have an hour, shut the fuck up and find the hour. And just sit. And just breathe. Eyes closed, stare at the ceiling, whatever. But just see what comes up. And then just sit with it. How did you feel? How did it make you feel? And then maybe look at that feeling, how am I doing that today in my daily life? That whatever feeling it is, if it's guilt. Let's say it's guilt. You have guilt over some things that you've done in your life that you haven't forgiven yourself for. What decisions do you make in your life based around guilt? How do you show up to the world based on that guilt? With the belief that you should feel guilty for things? Who do you have in your life? Who do you keep in your life just because you feel guilty? Who do you let step all over you? What boundaries do you not have because of your guilt? And then how are you going to be able to forgive yourself? Let's start looking at the forgiving, because, if you can forgive this person out here for doing something to you, perceiving to you, hurting you, Why can you not give that forgiveness to yourself? And then how can we change the behavior going forward? And that's practice. I catch myself all the time like, fuck, I just said that to be fucking nice. And not that being nice is bad, but like sometimes the person needs to hear something and I don't say it. And then I walk away being like, fuck, I should have said that. Why didn't I say that? I didn't want to upset them because I didn't want them to get mad at me. And I'm not talking like people in the grocery store when they say something off the cuff and they're a stranger. Like, I could care fucking less. I'm talking like the people in your life. The people in your life that you're doing a disservice to because you're not saying the real thing you want to say. Because you care. Because you see it. And they need to hear it. But you don't say it because you're like, oh, I'm afraid of hurting their feelings because I don't want them to reject me. I mean, we're all fucked up, you know? But at the end of the day, all of that fucked up shit, I mean, that's the stuff you're not addressing is what's stopping you from getting to the places you need to get in life. Whatever that looks like to you. And once you start to work through that shit, you'll start to see that you're deserving of the things that you truly want in life. And that's when we commit to the outcome. And then we do whatever the fuck it takes to get there. Instead of saying, these are the things that I kind of want, and we'll see how hard it is. And if it gets hard, I'll stop because I don't feel deserving of that thing. Big fucking difference. And the choice is and always will be yours.